Stagah. That is something that I invented when my children were young. When I said it, they immediately stopped what they were doing and paid rapid attention to what their father was about to say or not say. Stagah. My children, my grandchildren, and every pet I ever owned will know that word. Hi, this all started in 1942 when I was born. My dad was overseas fighting a war when I entered this glorious life. My mother was living with her parents in San Antonio, Texas, and she developed a tumor in the brain and died when I was 2 years old. And my grandparents, whose name was not Wyatt, but it was Honeycutt, that's Hunnicutt, if anybody cares to look it up. My grandfather was commander of Fort Sam Houston there in San Antonio, Texas. A very dignified gentleman I inherited some of his weird things and love of animals. He loved animals. He had a zoo in his backyard. One of the things I remember as a very young child was the chimpanzee that he had. We got to that thing, who would ever think a little bitty monkey had such strong arms? That one did. But he was friendly. I remember certain things. I remember all the chickens. It was a farm. I remember all the animals. I remember the first time he gave me an axe and told me to kill this chicken. I didn't want to. I thought of the chickens as my friends. And I kind of hesitated. I often wondered if he had the word stagah that I use so frequently. I don't believe so, but he had some way of getting my attention, I'm sure. And then I remember I had a big brother that's 3 years older than I. And I remember Granddad sending us down into his fruit cellar with knives to kill all the rats. And I did not want to go in that fruit cellar. It was dark. There was no light. I remember my big brother saying, "Bobby, we got to do it." And we did it. Came out of it. I just never forget. We'd come up out of that cellar. We were covered with blood. It was, for a little kid, that was pretty traumatic. I can't help but think that helped kind of formulate some of the way I've been all my life. And maybe that's where the words to God came from. I don't know. Anyway, my dad returned in 1945. He took my big brother to school. He had an apple for the teacher. My brother did. My dad took it away and gave it to the teacher. He ended up marrying the teacher. Most wonderful woman in the world. She adopted my brother and I. I adored that woman. Amy Elizabeth. She was a jewel. Boy, was she a jewel. My dad was a very, very hard man. Very hard man. I hated my father up until just a few years ago. And then I realized that he'd been dead since '88. And I was hating something that hate was festering in me, not doing anything to him. But it wasn't just me that disliked him. My little brother felt the same way. Actually, he was my half brother, but still my little brother. Because of the way he treated Mama. He wasn't violent. He wasn't abusive. It was if she just, her total job was to stay in the house, cook the meals, make sure everything was prepared and ready to be served exactly on time, not 1 minute late. And believe it or not, this man was very, very successful in his job. He was a Boy Scout executive. He rose through the ranks to be on the national staff. He was very good at his job. I think one of the reasons was he created fear in everybody he dealt with. He was Uh, I've been in rooms that had hundreds of people in there and they were talking, everybody talking. Dad would walk in the room and immediate silence. We're talking about a guy that was 5'5.5". He demanded attention. His whole, and he got it. He got it. Anyway, on with the story. Mama was wonderful. She was a teacher, as I mentioned. She helped the Chinese people there in San Antonio that were very, very rejected by most of the population down there. And in the 80s, I had a phone call from some Chinese gentleman. They were having some kind of ceremony in San Antonio, putting up a memorial to my mother. And they wanted to know if I could attend, and I couldn't. I was on the road. But she was very, very, very well respected. I know I look at my life, who meant a lot to me, and my big brother was an inspiration to me. Richard Lee went by the Dick, was what everybody called him. He was a tremendous influence in my life. He and I fought every single day when we were growing up. And I couldn't win fighting against that guy no matter what. He was just too good. But we fought. And my dad always said, if you boys want to fight, you make a ring with a water hose and you fight. My dad was a professional boxer at one time. Of course, I'm sure it was featherweight, whatever heck 5'5.5" guys fight at. It was the only fought I ever won with my brother was I insisted we make a hose in the garage. Actually, it was a carport, but it had the tools hanging on the wall. And as he was beating me around that ring, I reached up and grabbed a hammer and knocked him out. We never fought again after that. That was the end of the fighting. He says, I don't fight, you don't fight fair. And I says, heck no. Years I've taken a beating. I'm tired of it. But I love that guy. Believe it or not, he went off to college. Boy, did I miss him. Sure did. He got killed in a car wreck in 1967. He became a professional scouter up in Raccoon, New Mexico. When I came back from Vietnam in January of 67, I went back there, of course, to visit him. He told me I rode with him over to this town. I can't remember the name of it. But he said, we're going to go meet with a bunch of ranchers and stuff that do not want Boy Scouting, do not want it in their area. They use their boys, they're teaching their boys how to be men. And they don't want scouting. And they're having this big meeting. We get to this meeting hall, and there must have been 30 or 40 of these guys. And they started right in on my brother. And I was so mad. I wanted to get up and just clean that house. And he kept saying, Bob, calm down. I'll take this. I'll take this. And he let them rant and rave. And when they were done, he got up, never raised his voice, never used a curse word. And when he was through talking, there was total silence. And we got up, he walked by and said, let's go. And off we went. We went home back to Raton. The next morning, about 6 o'clock, there was a banging on the front door. And it was about 15 of those ranchers said, we want to take you to breakfast and you show us how to set up the Boy Scouts in our area. What a guy. And then May 1st, he was in a car wreck, head-on collision with a truck loaded down with steel. He was the kind of guy that when he started laughing, he just lost control. And that's exactly what happened. I know he was laughing. And he crossed the lane right into that truck. And then a month later, Mama died. Two people that I love most in the world. And I kind of went on a rampage at that time. Even with the 5 kids I have, I mean, drink, alcoholic. I was still in the Marine Corps. And I could go on for hours about the Marine Corps, which I love dearly. But my first 2 years in, I had 28 office hours and 2 court martials in my first 2 years. When it came time to get out, they told me I couldn't have an honorable discharge. And I said, well, that's unacceptable. I said, I want an honorable discharge. And they said, well, you'll have to write the commandant to see if he'll give you permission to stay in. So I did. I wrote the commandant a letter, told him I was an Eagle Scout. I always wanted to be a Marine because both my uncles were Marines during World War II, both pilots. Anyhow, he said I could stay in if I signed up for 6 more years. I already spent 4. And I thought, oh, brother, okay, I'll stay the 6 because I want that honorable discharge. Well, all of a sudden, Vietnam broke out. I volunteered to go and rank, I just made all kind of rank. It was ridiculous. When I got out, I was an E6. Normally it takes the normal Marine about 16, 18 years to get up to that rank. I made it in 8. I didn't even know how to be a staff. I didn't know how to be a sergeant. They were throwing rank. Truth of the matter is, I had corporal stripes on my uniform when I made staff sergeant. I didn't even have sergeant stripes on my uniform. And I told them, man, I don't know how, I'm not spending enough time in the rank to know how to do this. And they said, shut up, do the job. So, okay, I shut up and I did the job. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I've kind of lost 10 years, a long time, especially since you're 17 years old, growing up. It's a violent life. It's not normal life, what most people think of. Marine Corps is very, very violent life. All you're told is how to kill. You get out into civilian life, it's a whole different ball game. I didn't know exactly what to do, so I thought, well, I'll drive a truck. A buddy of mine in the Corps, he was taking leave. He said, come with me to St. Louis. We did that. We went to St. Louis, and that's right in 1970 when they're having all the trucker strike in St. Louis. And I stayed there for a month. I thought, shoot, I got a wife and 5 kids. I've got to have a job. So I went off back to Texas. My dad at that time had an apartment. And I said, can I stay with you? And he goes, yeah. I went to Magnavox and applied for a job. And at the interview, I had the manager and the assistant manager in the office. I just looked the manager in the eyes and I said, in 1 year, I'll have his job. And I pointed to the assistant manager. And he got this look on his face. And I said, don't worry about it. You're going to get promoted. I said, but I'll have your job. 11 months later, I had his job. But number one, I know how to work. Anyhow, that was a good job until I was hiring people, firing people. I had a really good man named Jim Flint that I wanted to give a raise to, a nickel an hour, 5 cents, 40 cents a day. And they said, oh, we can't afford that. And I said, we have an excellent man here. I don't want him going down the road. I said, let's give him a raise. They said, oh, we can't afford it. Later on that week, they had a real fancy dinner, flew people in from all over the country. I couldn't eat. I'm sitting, they spent more on that dinner for those folks than 10, 20 years raises at a nickel an hour. And finally, I just stood up and said, I can't take this crap. I said, I quit. Walked out. They thought I was kidding. Wasn't kidding. I was serious. Well, nice thing about it, they made Jim Flint the assistant manager. He got promoted, got a heck of a nice raise, a lot more than a nickel an hour. So that worked out good. I went on, did all kind of different stuff, highline work, still drinking very heavily. I was down in Killeen, Texas, working a highline. I was on the ground doing groundwork. And the guy that was up there, he had a hot wire. Anybody knows anything about electricity, that thing killed him instantly. And I had to lower him to the ground. And I've seen a lot of dead bodies in my life. But I thought, nah, this line of work's not for me. I said, man, that could have been me. Sure could have been. So I was really happy. I got home. I was going to tell the wife, well, I am not going to do this anymore. I'm sure she's tired of hearing me say that about the jobs I've had. But my family never went without food. They never went without clothing. They always lived in a nice home. I provided for my family. Well, that thing's changed because she wasn't there. She and the kids were gone. And there's a note saying, I'm leaving you. We're going to Arkansas. I had 2 dogs that were out there. I don't know how long they'd gone without food. They had water. I said, well, this is not going to go over. So I packed the dogs in the car and I went to Arkansas and I talked to her, met one of well, actually I'd met him years before, but I didn't know him, Bobby Wisdom, one of the finest men that walked the earth, had a 3rd grade education. He paid up for 7 acres of land, built his house. Now, very unique house. You walk in the front door and you run all the way down to the kitchen because it was built on a hill. I mean, a steep hill. Yeah. You ran all the way down the kitchen. Lovely wife. His wife, Miss Mary. They had 5 children. Bobby and I were the ones. He was just then going into tree trimming. And so that's how I got into the tree trimming business with Bobby. He had just suffered a stroke. So the day he died, you never understood him that clearly. I guess for a year, you couldn't understand him at all. Because when he tried to talk, anyway, after a year, I don't know if I developed an ear for that strange language or what, but I understood him perfectly. Just a wonderful man. Probably the toughest guy I've ever known. Just really a tough man. But when Bobby Wisdom said he'd do something, he did it. You didn't have to wonder, would he really come through? He did it. What a guy. He's dead now, been dead for years. His wife, Miss Mary, she's been dead for years. Lovely woman. I've been blessed in this life to have met some of the most fantastic people. Why God loves me, I have no idea. I should have been dead. In fact, I've been pronounced dead 3 times, but still alive, still kicking. In fact, you see this candle. You guys, my kids know. A lot of my grandkids know that 2013, I was stage 4 COPD and emphysema, and the doctors told me that if I lived 4 years, I'd really be lucky. Well, here it is, 2022, 9 years later. Just this last March 2nd, I was in the hospital. They put me on hospice. They told me they couldn't see any way I'd make 6 months. I'm still going. Why, I don't know. I am so blessed. Now I'm on my fifth wife. Two of them are dead. But I'm on my fifth wife, and believe it or not, she's not in here. So, but I'm going to tell you, this is the best. The best one showed up last. God, for some reason, I don't know why he's mad at her. You know, sticking her with me. I guess he has a heck of a sense of humor. Boy, she a blessing. I was living up in a little town north of Phoenix, about 90 miles, about eight, no, it's not that far. 90, about 75 miles. Little town called Gysela. One way in, one way out. You got to go up this mountain, go down into this valley. That's where me and wife number 4 were living. Beautiful little, beautiful place. But she died. I was there. She'd been dead for a little over a year, probably 18 months. And I was just lonely. Wonderful neighbors there, great neighbors. One of the guys that I just love him and his family. He was a hunter guide. He guided bear hunts and that kind of stuff. Brian Marshall was his name. At the age of 45, he died up on a bear hunt up in the mountains. And he called me, Bob, I can't breathe. Anyway, I loved a lot of people. Still love his wife and kids. I mean, anyway, getting back to how I met this girl. I got on this, I wish she was here because she'd tell me, one of those match things where you match somebody up. I thought, man, I'm 70 years old, actually 70, at that time, 72, I believe. And I said, no way. But I filled in their thing. I mean, I hadn't been 10 minutes. And ding, here's this little a wink. She winked at me somehow. And she had a picture of herself. And I thought, wow, she's cute. I said, she's not going to be interested in an old fogey like me. So I winked back. I hit a little deal where I winked back. She came right back and said, I don't have time to talk. This was not talking, but actually what he called messaging. And she says, I don't have time to talk. I'm going camping. Period. I said, man, she must have seen my picture. She's let me down easy. So I kind of brushed her off. I figured she's heading for, Anyway, 3 or 4 days later, she comes back, sends me a message. I was down on the river, Colorado River, with my kids camping. I thought, wow. Anyway, we got talking. We talked for 3 or 4 months, and then I had to go down to the VA in Phoenix. And I said, can I take you to breakfast? And I said, then I got to go to the VA. So she said, sure. She says, meet me. I wish she was in here at this place. I had breakfast anyway. So I got down there early. And I'm sitting there in my pickup. And she told me while she was driving. And I see her driving up in this little car. I said, she's going to come up here, take one look at me, do a U-turn, and just burn rubber getting out of here. But she didn't. But the place was closed. And I thought, boy, she knew that. This devious mind of mine was going. I said, she knew it was closed. She had no intentions. Anyway, she says, follow me. I know a place where we can go have breakfast. So she didn't tell me that she was part race driver because she took off. I thought she's going to try to lose me. She wasn't. She just drives like that. So we go to this place. We have breakfast, and I had to leave. I had to go to the VA. but we talked an awful lot. And finally on the phone, talking on the phone, just a wonderful woman. And we got together. I'd come down and visit. I met her. She took her grandkids to school every day, picked them up every day. Just a wonderful grandmother. I fell in love with her grandkids. I still do love them. They're ugly now, but I still love them. Finally, I said, well, why don't we get married? I said, okay. We had a beautiful wedding at her home, May 1st in Gilbert, Arizona. The date of my brother's demise was an unhappy occasion of that then, a very happy occasion in 2015. We took off. I didn't feel right, even during the wedding. I felt something was wrong. I couldn't breathe right. We took off for a honeymoon, and we went up through Petrified Forest, that area. And I was stopping. I could not get out of the car. I told her to go look at everything. She did. She went out and looked. She come back. She says, she said, are you got it? Yeah. I just having a little hard time breathing. Well, anyway, we got up after all day doing that. We got to Gallup, New Mexico, and we're sitting there at a restaurant eating dinner. I could not get my breath. I said, I think I need to go to emergency. And for my honeymoon, spent a week in the emergency in the hospital. Boy, am I a romantic or what? Here's his sweetheart, most wonderful woman in the world, all by herself in a strange town with this lunkhead of a husband lying up in the hospital. Oh, good grief, Gertie. Anyway, that was our honeymoon. We came home. He was married 45 years to the same man. Heck of a guy. I respect the heck out of him. They raised 3 daughters, 3 beautiful daughters. I love them, just like my own. I'm blessed to know their children love me and I love them. At 70, who would have ever thought? It doesn't enter your mind. It just doesn't. I've had such a great life. God has been so good to me. From being an alcoholic to recovering to accepting Jesus Christ as my Savior, it's been wonderful. Just wonderful. As I told you, when I first saw her on this thing, and she says, I'm going camping with my girls. I'm an Eagle Scout. I love camping. It's just part of me. Too old to do that kind of crap, go out there and put up a tent and that kind of thing. So we talked about it. Long story short, we bought a motor home. Quite an adventure. She had never been in anything that big. Of course, I'm an old truck driver, so it wasn't anything to me. Was to her. We had quite a lot of adventures in that motor home. We went back east all the way to North Carolina to see my very best friend that I went through school with all the way from 7th grade on. We both joined the Marine Corps on the same day. Robert D. Sanders, love him to this day. Wonderful man, who's had a stellar life himself. Anyway, we went back and visited, spent a week there with Robert. His little brother, Jimmy, from down in South Texas, he drove up to be with us because I knew Jimmy, of course, growing up. We had a wonderful week of visiting. His children, his grandson, one of his grandchildren, to his daughter, had a very rare form of cancer. Beautiful child. We got to visit. A month after we were there, he died. But I'm glad we got to spend that little bit of time we did with him. But then I went to see my little brother. who I hadn't talked to in 32 years. And that was all over Dad's death. As I expressed earlier, I hated my father, but I respected him. I found out stuff about him that made him the way he was. That wasn't out of, a lot of it wasn't choice. It was the way he was. He was raised in a house of prostitution up in Spokane, Washington. His disdain for women was pretty deep. and understandable, really. But he fought for everything he had. And like I said, he was a professional boxer, put himself through college. He was an Eagle Scout. That's why he loved scouting, why he went to the profession of scouting. And Edward Earl Wyatt, I was excited because I had been trying to for 32 years, trying to state that he would not. But then I called him. I said, "Hey, I'm in North Carolina. Can we come by and visit?" Yes. Oh, Eureka. We drove up there to his place, spent 2 hours. And that was the longest 2 hours of my life. And it was the longest 2 hours of my wife's life. It was the longest 2 hours of his life and his wife. I couldn't wait to get out of there. He couldn't wait for me to get out of there. The tension was so high, it was unreal. And that's so sad. That is so sad because I love him. He's my little brother. And I've given a lot of thought and prayer to it. And I've come to the conclusion that he was 11 years old when I went in the Marine Corps. He didn't know me. To him, I was somebody that was just foreign, that when I saw him, I wasn't friendly big brother. He had quite an interesting life, graduated from college, became a teacher, taught 1 year, and had some kind of conflict with parents and said, I'm not going to do that. Went on with his life, ended up, he worked for TSA for many, many years. Haven't talked to him since. I have tried, called and called. He will not accept my phone calls. So I'm sure I'm going to die without talking to my little brother. I'm going to send him this tape. I love it. You go to your grave, your big brother loves you. Oh, well. Oh, I've had some of the best in the world. The best in the world. Number one was a collie named Tippy. Had her for 16 years. When I was in Arkansas, at one time I was working on a farm, had chicken houses with 10,000 hens, 1,200 roosters in each house, and had two of them. Dogs were not allowed in those houses. Well, I took Tippy in the house because when you first get the little chicks, they're little bitty chicks, and they're all on the floor. You got to pick them up, put them up on the slats, which is about 3 foot high. 10,000 birds picking them up. Are you kidding me? But Tippy would pick them up, put them up there. She saw me do it, so then, heck yeah, Tip, come in here, go to work. She did it with me. Well, they had this inspector come by, and Lackner had a hernia when he saw it. Number one, I have to describe Tippy. When most people think of a collie, they think of the Lassie, weighs about 60 pounds, 70 pounds, something like that. Tippy weighed 150 pounds. Pure collie, 100% collie. She's just a freak of nature. Black and white, not no golden, black and white. Pure collie. What a dog. What the smartest dog I've ever had. I swear she could read my mind. She was just anyway, make a long story short, I told the guy, hey, you see what she does. you know, if you forbid it, okay, that's fine. He went in there with me and saw how she picked them up, put them on the slats. He says, I've never seen anything like that in my life. He said, she doesn't kill any of them. I said, no, no, no. He says, well, okay, she can stay. she unbelievable. We were out rounding up cattle one day on horseback. A bunch of the cows ran into the woods and the brush. And I just said, Tippy, get them. This was not a trained cattle dog. Into the woods she went. Out with the cattle she came. She was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. We were, of course, out in the country on an old dirt road, you know, about 3 miles back in the hills. Driving on that road every day, she rode in the back of my pickup and had these hounds on this road. Used to come out and bark and growl at her, and she would look at them, you know. Did this for several years. And finally, one day, I just stopped the pickup and said, get them, Tip. Those hounds never came back out to the road again. She jumped back in that pickup. She had the biggest smile on her face. I'm serious. This dog, she was an amazing dog. Tippy, 16 years. And another dog I just put down 2 years. She was a rescue dog. Her name was Izzy. Izzy. She went down to dog pound there, and I don't think they call it dog pound. Anyway, there in Mesa, and walking through, and I saw this pathetic looking dog with one puppy. And I said, boy, she looks bad. And the guy says, yeah, that's her last puppy. We're waiting for that puppy to get adopted, and then we're going to put her down because she's a runner. It said 2 years we chased her till she got pregnant. Then we could catch her. But we're going to have to put her down because she's a runner. He says, and that last puppy just got adopted. And they're going to pick up the puppy tomorrow, and we'll put her down. And that dog looked me dead in the eyes. Looked at me. I said, that's the dog I want to adopt. And he says, no, she's a runner. I says, I got 1.5 acres up there in the hills. She can run her little tail off. I says, I got it all fenced. And I got a great big cattle gate with fence on it. She's not even getting through there. She can have the time of her life running all she wants. So I took Tippy home. Oh, not Tippy, excuse me, Izzy. Water dog. American Bulldog. I got to reading about how much I should feed her because she's been living off the streets. So, okay, how much should I feed a dog like this? It said a cup, I think it said a cup every meal or something like that. So I was giving her a cup in the morning and a cup at night. Gosh, she was getting heavy. So I took her to the vet and she weighed 110 pounds. And the vet says, how much are you feeding this dog? I said, a cup in the morning, a cup at night. He left the room and he came back with this little bitty dinky thing. He says, this is a cup. I said, really? I've been feeding her 5 cups in the morning. I had and 5 cups at night. And because she'd been living on the street, she ate everything. You know, food. I'm eating it. So I've had to put poor Izzy on a diet. She got that. She stayed 80 pounds for the rest of her life. Beautiful, beautiful dog. She would be here today if it wasn't for these Sonoran toads that we have around here. The most protective dog, even Tippy. Tippy never was a real guard dog, or really, heck, everybody was her friend. You know, Izzy wasn't a I'm your pal type dog. to people. She never was aggressive or anything to them. She just stood and watched them. Loved kids, loved babies, I mean, she was a very gentle dog. But adults, man, she lived on the street for 2 years. I'm sure she had rocks thrown at her and probably shot with BBs. And so the human race wasn't her most popular thing. She thought she saved my life one day. A neighbor up there, we were working on my ATV. We were both bent over it. His pit bull jumped up on the seat of the ATV, and here in a flash, it became sailing through the air, knocked that pit bull down, had it on the ground, was killing it. It took both of us beating on Izzy. Hey, don't kill the dog. Got her off. If we would have never got off, if Brian Marshall he was right next door, that guy I was telling you about, he was out there doing something with the water hose. He came over and sprayed water on that, broke him up. Quite a dog. So those are the two dogs that had a lot of dogs. We've got a little one here that's Rottweiler. What she thinks she is. She's 12 pounds. She's actually a Maltipoo, but she thinks she's a Rottweiler. She has stood nose to nose in our cyclone fence out here with coyotes. They're just her, she's her. Her name is Melange. It means mixture. But I didn't name her. The kids, they got her grandkids. Make a long story short, they had too many kids. Not anybody's paying attention to the puppy. And I happened to go over to get the grandkids to bring them over to our place for the weekend. Mike, who was the son-in-law, he had the little dog. He said, we're getting rid of this thing, taking it to the pound. I said, you're not taking that dog to the pound. I said, I'll take it. So I showed up at the house with two grandkids and a puppy. And Joyce, who was my wife, she thought the puppy was visiting. And being the brave soul that I am, I didn't have the guts to tell her, oh, this is a permanent resident now. I just let things slide. I took the grandkids home. The puppy stayed. I tried to do anything with that puppy. Oh, man. But anyway, we got her. I call her Mimi because I quit for the longest. I had a hard time with that melange thing. And it's one of those French words that has a little gadgetou coming down on top. Made no sense to me. I'm Texan. I don't know that stuff. 2 months ago, I told Joyce, listen, I'm not long for this world. And I'm scared to death. We live out in the country. And I'm scared to death. You're out here all by yourself. I'm going to get you a dog. Love Mimi. She thinks she's a Rottweiler. The coyotes already jumped the fence once and got her. And just luckily, she squealed. I happened to yell, and the coyote dropped her and went back across the fence. But I wanted something. So we got a rotten shepherd. You know what a rotten shepherd is. The dad was a 110-pound Rottweiler, and the mother was a 70-pound German Shepherd. She weighed 16 pounds when we picked her up July 13th. She now weighs over 40 pounds. She's going to be a monster. We had the hardest time naming her. First thing we came up with was Roxy. And we thought, oh, that's a nice name. That fits perfect. 2 hours later, what was her name? Well, forget Roxy. We can't remember that. So we came up with something else. And then we got to thinking all her dogs from the time I met her were started with a Z. There was Jaja and there was Zoe, She said, let's start something with a Z. And we had Izzy. It had Z's in it. So I said, okay, what can we name her? So we got on Google for dog name that start with Z and picked Ziggy. So that's her name, Ziggy. And she is a prize. Very, very intelligent. First day we had her, the folks we got her from, they didn't have a doggy door. We do. Puppy learned the first day without we didn't even show her. She just used the doggy door. Wow, that's smart. And she has been showing that intelligence ever since. She's just a smart puppy. I don't like her. Okay, I love her. All right, you forced it out of me. She is a beautiful dog. She's right here beside me. This side. My Rottweiler's right here on this side. They don't like me. They just want to make sure nobody else gets to me. You know, I'm the one they get to chew on. I'm blessed. I'm just blessed. I was hoping my wife would walk in here so you get to see her. She's a doll. She's a cougar. Much older than I am. Much older. The 25th of this month, she turns 80. And the next month in October, I turn 80. But I can say she's a cougar. Of course, everybody wants to help me get in and out of cars, and they think she's in her 60s. She doesn't look 80. I look like 102, you know. Well, I tell you, the Lord has really blessed me to give me a wife that has bad eyesight and no sense of smell. she has to have that, because why else would she even go with me? Doesn't make sense. Five children, the oldest being John Robert. I inherited him. I didn't father him. He was my first wife's little boy. He was 1.5 years old. I think I fell in love with him before I fell in love with his mother, although he did make me mad when he tried to drink my beer. Really. He and I have been pals for many years. When his mother and I separated, he chose to go with me. He was 16 at the time. He's over here in northwest Phoenix. He's a very successful man. I'm so proud of him. He has done so much in his life. He followed me. He went in the Marine Corps for 4 years. He's been in computers. He put himself through college. Never asked me for a dime. I gave him some money one time, I think $100 bill. Said, listen, go. He framed that damn thing. It's still in his office. Never asked me for a dime. Never asked me for a dime. And then when I give him something, he frames it. The bird brain. Love him. He's in computers. I mean, that's so far over my head, I couldn't even start to tell you. But what he has done here in Arizona is he used to be part of the Central Arizona Mountain Rescue Team. He was secretary. I remember at the time, I think this has been 20 years ago, he said they needed some kind of book showing different knots, ropes, rescue techniques. And so he wrote the book. He has received several accommodations from the governor for rescues that he did himself, and one of them was going down into this mine, lowering him down like 150 foot to bring back this, what do they call it, dead body, cavatar or something like that, bring back his body. Nobody wanted to do it. Bobby did it. I call him Bobby. Everybody else in the world calls him John. When he went in the Marine, that was another thing. He came up to me before he went in the Marine Corps, says, can I change my name to Wyatt? Can't tell you how proud I am of that boy. I said, you better think about it. But that's what he did. He's legally a Wyatt. Rhonda Marie. She's my oldest daughter. Love her to pieces. She's had a very out of bad choices, rough life. I'm not even going to start on everything on that. But she's pulled herself up by her bootstraps the last 20 years. She lives in Oklahoma City. She has her daughter with her. They're living together. And I love her to death. Always will. She's my sweetie pie. Then there's Laura Elizabeth. Laura's my little tomboy. She grew up fighting everything, fought all the kids' battles and won. She's something else. She lives in Oklahoma. Love her to death. Then there's Wendy Ann Wyatt. Wendy's my little pumpkin, and little ball of fire. Man, people say I'm a talker. They haven't been around Wendy. We named her right. Whew, is she ever Wendy? She just talks and talks and talks. But she's living in Arkansas. I talked to her probably two. The other girls Laura I talked to about once a week. Rhonda maybe once a month, but Wendy almost every day. And then there's my youngest, Paul Edward Wyatt. Paul is 54 years old. Right now, he's going through drug rehabilitation. He's trying to get his life straightened out. I pray that he does. I love him. He is one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He's trying to fight through that right now, and I pray that he stays with it. But something he can never, ever get rid of. It's my love for him. I've been blessed. I wasn't one of the worst fathers in the world, probably. But something my kids always knew was I loved them. Hard? Oh my gosh, was I hard. When I came out of the Marine Corps, ugh. Well, even in the Marine Corps, with the kids, I mean, they told the line. There wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If I told them to do stuff, they better have it halfway done by the time I finished talking. I mean, it was just the way I was. As the years went by, I saw, boy, you can't treat your kids like that, you know. But I love them dearly, and they know it. They love me. Of course, I'm, again, bad eyesight, no sense of smell. I must run in the air somewhere. I've been blessed that way. The family, friends. Gosh, I got such dear friends. I mentioned Robert Sanders, Tom McGuire down in Texas. These kids that grew up, most people, they hit around 80. You can count your friends, on one finger. I don't have enough fingers and toes. It's just unbelievable. I often wonder if it was the big ears. They kind of felt sorry for me or something, Gee, we better stay with him. He can't make it on his own. But that's my children. My children have been great. As I said, I've been married 5 times. 2 other wives have died. One, I have no idea where she's at. She was one I was only married to 6 years. All the rest of them was over 10 years. So first wife is still alive. She's there in Oklahoma. But this wife I got now, wow, what a jewel. Meaner than a one-eyed rattlesnake. But she has to be to put up with me. The problem is that one-eyed rattlesnake has the cutest grin in the world, and so cute. You just got to, even when she's mad, shoot, all I want to do is hug her. So this is going to sound kind of weird, but what always brings a smile to my face is knowing the love that Christ has for me. When I think of that, when we say our prayers every day, when I read the Bible, I think, how lucky am I? How blessed am I? And it just made the sacrifice he made for me. I take Christ very personal. I think when he was nailed to the cross, he says, I'm doing this for Bob Wyatt. I love my kids. I don't know if I'd be nailed to the cross for them. Probably. But boy, geez, that brings a smile to my face because I'm blessed. And wow. And to think of the love God has to send his son. Wow. I could not do that. I could not take one of my children and say, okay, you're going down and you're going to die on a cross and take all the sins of the world on you. Couldn't do that to them. I don't have that kind of love. It's beyond my comprehension. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of and most sorry about all at the same time is that I decided that I was going to get a college education for one reason, to show my children that if they put their minds to it, they can study and do good. And I was working full time. I was part of the National Guard and going to college full time and graduated magna cum laude. I was very proud of that. At the same time, on reflection back, what that took away from the family. I wish I hadn't gone to college. Because did I use that education? No. Heck no. I became a truck driver. It was really, I was glad I did it because the kids, when they saw me graduate, and not only just graduate, but become magna cum laude, and the valedictorian, I had the exact grade point average. We did rock, scissors, and paper to see who would get. And he won. So that's kind of, that's an interesting fact. But that was probably the most proud I've been. And yet over the years, I've been sorry I did it. The Marine Corps, there is no such thing as an ex-Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I think they drill that into you till you just can't get it out. You cannot get it out. On this hand, I wear my wedding band. On this hand, I wear my Marine Corps ring. I got that tattoo at the age of 17. So it's been with me a lot of years. Yeah. So, but as far as individual, just something I'm really proud of was college. And that was not easy. Let me tell you, that was not easy. But what it cost me wasn't worth it. I want them, of course, I want every single one of them to accept Christ as their Savior. But to love, get all the hate and bad feelings you have for one another or for anybody out of your system. Realize that those thoughts you are carrying are strictly up in your head. They're not transcending your brain skull and going over. Love your family, adore your family. As you get older, you each go your separate way and you have your separate families, it's easy to get separated. Oh, we'll meet once a year. A lot happens in 1 year. Be with that family, check on that family, let them know that you love them, they love you. That would be my advice is love. Love your neighbors. My gosh, I just think about Sandra and Gray, what a blessing they've been to us. When I tell them I love them, I mean I love them. It's not, hey, I like you a lot. You know, I love them. That's the way you really need to be to everybody. It's just love them. We've got the sweetest neighbors here, and you got to love them and get a big dog. To protect the ones you love. Yeah, that's what I think.